That's a beautiful little milestone that I didn't even realize. Although I have to say that my colleagues at law school, my rewarding colleagues, um, are planning a reunion of all of us from across the Caribbean who were from the class of 2000. So it should have struck me a little bit more, but it struck me on the day I graduated. I was called to the bar. So yes, it is 25 years. And I'm really happy to say that in that time, I had I came back and I was working with Comrade Ramjatan and associates, and he was senior counsel and I was a junior in his chambers. He was lovely to work with, very good with allowing me the freedom to be and to actually practice. And the good thing about that was that at the time, Comrade was with the PPP as a PPP, a very senior PPP member actually, and recognized politician. And I got called in October, and there was an election in March of 2001. I think it was actually March 19th, if I remember correctly. And so he was out a lot. And it was either I sing or I swim. So I remember going to court and just asking for an adjournment, just asking for a date. I'd have butterflies in my stomach for a couple of days, maybe a week. I don't know how long that lasted. But then I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer who was just asking for a date like so many other junior lawyers. That was typical, and I didn't want to be typical. So I started doing work and actually being able to carry arguments and hold my own. So I'm really glad that I had that period of pitching in head first. Then I went off on my own and had my own chambers, and then there was a need for legal aid was going to get closed because their funding had dried up. And legal aid at the time was the only legal aid provider. It was based in Georgetown, only for Georgetown residents. And so I started volunteering there while I had my own chambers. And I think that's where I got the wideness and variety of practice with people and issues who ordinarily would not walk into the chambers of an attorney at law where they had to pay. And I think that's where my grounding in law really came from. And then I went into human services. So when I was doing legal aid, it was the Georgetown Legal Aid Clinic. When I went over to human services as Minister of Human Services and Social Security on the invitation of then President Barry Jack Dale, we expanded legal aid. So we actually had to change the name. The board had to change the name to the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic because we then put legal aid in regions 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, and Georgetown. And while I was there, I passed and piloted in the National Assembly the Protection of Children Act, the custody, care, guardianship, adoption of children. I have about 7 or 8 pieces of legislation, including the Revolutionary Sex Offences Act. We established the first and only so far Child Protection Agency, which was established through a piece of legislation also. So I got to do law in practice, but I also got to pass laws that made sense to a lot of people. Sometimes simple laws that would change significantly how people related in families. I was also really pleased to be able to put up a paper at the cabinet for the establishment of the country's first and only family court. And so you see an extension in the High Court where there's a whole family court set up with new family rules which treat families in crisis differently from how it was when I was in practice. I was really pleased about that. Then we came out of government, lost the government, and I was able to use the laws that I had passed and practice in the family court that I'd helped establish. And we saw where some gaps were. So when we came back into government again, 2020 to 2025, we made some changes. And you saw the what we call the no-fault divorce being passed, where now you don't have to go to court and say exactly how your partner wronged you. if a marriage is over, it's over, and we wanted to give people the opportunity and option of saying that there was an irretrievable breakdown without further scandalizing each other, which can be very harmful for co-parenting after that. So it's been a really nice 25 years where I practiced in court, where I volunteered at Legal Aid and then worked there for a little bit as their senior supervising attorney, where I passed laws, where I got to use some of those laws that I passed, where we established institutions that are going nowhere, that are only going to expand and get better, like Family Court, like the Child Protection Agency, like Legal Aid across Guyana. So it's been a really beautiful 25 years of using my legal training to do my little bit in my little position. And I'm really grateful that I've been given those opportunities by God, by my parents, and by the party that has offered me the opportunity to serve in that way.
You see, and what would you say was your main motivation to join the legal fraternity?
You know what's funny? I did sciences right at this school. So I came to Queens, and my brother did science, and we couldn't go home and say we were doing arts. My parents, my aunts, and so would have been like, what's that? You're supposed to kind of know that by yourself. Read on your own, learn these things on your own. You're doing sciences. So I did sciences, phys, chem, bio, maths, English, lit, history. At that time, we weren't doing 20 subjects, it was 7, and add math. And then left here and went to do law and never really looked back. I mean,
Looking back, what would you say would be your highest point of achievement? I know you mentioned a lot of achievements over the years, so which is most personal to you? Which one stands out to you?
it's very difficult to put one over the other. For every person who was assisted at any of the legal aid clinics that was established, I won't even know their faces, but that's something that will change their life in many, many ways. For anyone who was able to use the Sex Offences Act and get justice, because rape is simply not something we have to put up with. Or because we've changed some really archaic laws. Like, for example, if you were married, you couldn't accuse your husband of rape because the system thought that consent flowed from marriage. That's no longer the case. Or that a complaint about rape had to be corroborated. I mean, somebody else has to say they know this happened. Rape never happens in the high noon at the market square, so you almost never have witnesses. So that was a hard thing for people to prove when they were making allegations. Or for someone who's using the family courts. For someone who has seen me and said, well, we're going to speak back to authority. We're going to fight against, rigging of an election, for example, the way she did. We're going to stop that from happening in our country, in our sphere, in our land. It's very difficult to put any one thing as the most important thing that I did. I think it's a combination of things, and I'm still a work in progress. So there may be better is to come. So ask me that years from now.